and the Sinaloa cartel. Well, I know you guys can relate when I say that life is very hard to prosper in. We as students were blessed in the United States to go to college if we could afford it, and we go through many obstacles in life. But just like we're blessed, some people, like in Mexico, are not. Life in Mexico is very hard. Many families can't really afford to send their children off to college. So the only way you really made it out was that you were born into a rich family and they pay for your education. Another was if you actually became a farmer and lived the rest of your life farming, or else you got into illegal activity and joined the cartel. One of my examples is a kid named Joaquin Guzman, which will be like very known as El Chapo Guzman later in his time. Okay. The media has showed that the cartels all had bloody wars during the 1970s when it was at its highest peak, and it is still a problem now. And me, because I am a Mexican descendant, I have a really interest in the problems my second home country basically is going through, so I decided to research about it. Okay. Alright, so by learning today about El Chapo Guzman, you guys will have a better understanding of the terror he caused during the 1970s. And today what I'm going to talk to you guys about is his background information. For you guys who don't know what a narcotraficante is, or narcotics trafficker, you guys are going to learn today. And what makes the components of it, and the problems Mexico faced during this time, and the solutions they decided. Okay, and the real question about how this man came to be is how. Okay. He was born in a small little village in Badiraguato, which is in Sinaloa. His village was called La Tuna de Badiraguato. Okay. He was the oldest of 6 children. He wasn't really rich because it was a very impoverished village. So his father made him quit school by the time he reached the 3rd grade. And it states, Patrick Keane, a New York writer, stated in an article, for generations Sinaloan farmers made kids work, and his father was known as an opium farmer and also harvested marijuana or marijuana, and he was affiliated with drug activity. So El Chapo Guzman, or Joaquin, also started getting into that kind of life, and he became the apprentice of 2 very known drug lords, which is the middle one and the far right, which is Amado Carrillo Fuentes, he's known as El Señor de los Cielos, the Lord of the Skies, who was the drug lord of Juarez. He was known for transporting large amounts of cocaine over to the United States and other destinations. And the other one is Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo. He's known as El Padrino, and he's affiliated with being the drug lord of Guadalajara. So during this time, Joaquin Guzman Loera was actually the apprentice to both of these. His first job was to actually transport 2 big jets filled with cocaine safely into Southern California. And he was actually very smart. He was very inventive at this time. He decided he should warehouse all his drugs in Southern California, and he also created tunnels underneath the border, if you guys didn't know, and paid off many officials, many border patrol agents too. Okay, and basically what I decided to say for a definition of a narcotraficante was, it actually says in the dictionary.com that it is a buyer and seller of illegal drugs. Okay, and what I thought to describe them is that they have very luxurious lives. One, they don't really make it to very old age because they're very sought out by their country for illegal activity. 2, they always have bodyguards, armed bodyguards around them, securing them. And they're always having constant wars with other cartels. So now that we discussed what his background information about the Chapo Guzman and what it means to be a narcotraficante, we'll move on to the problems that Mexico had. Okay, so to understand what the problems were, we have to talk about the murder rate and why he is also idolized, which was a problem for Mexico, as he is a very evil drug lord. Okay, Laurie Freeman, a professor at the University of Texas, examined the murder rate of Sinaloa in her book State of Siege, Drug-Related Violence and Corruption of Mexico. States that Sinaloa is one of Mexico's top drug trafficking hubs. For the past 10 years, she's also there's been 500 deaths per year. In 2006, the Sinaloa saw 142 deaths that were related to drug violence. And one of these events that actually happened was that when the Tijuana cartel, a rivaling cartel, sought to murder Joaquin Guzman Loera, what they thought he was, what he actually wasn't. They thought he was in a car, but they actually killed the Archbishop Juan Jesus Posada Ocampo, which is the Archbishop of Mexico. And then another problem was that with Forbes' list that he was ranked 67th out of 72 of the most powerfulest person in the world, and it also states that him and his cartel were responsible for 25% of the drugs that were transported to the U.S. Okay, now that I'm gonna skip all that. All right, so now that we talked about the problems that Mexico faced, we're talking about the solutions. One possible solution was that since he was involved in the murder, basically, of the Archbishop, he was incarcerated a month later, and especially since he had a $5 bounty on his head. But since he bought out everybody in the prison, he escaped in a laundry basket one night, and he made an escape and was never seen till around 8 years later. And then the last time he was incarcerated. It was February 22nd of 2014, where he was in Mazatlan, Sinaloa. He was on the fourth floor of his condominium with his wife and two twin children, and he was captured by Marines. Okay, now to wrap it all up, now that you guys have a better understanding of what the Chapo Guzman faced, I'm sorry, but I'm just kidding. Deadly gang wars, these are all the marijuana, opium, and methamphetamine. I'm sorry about that. And that's the drug rate, the murder rate. That's actually the Archbishop. He was, his first jail was in the islands of Maria Penal, which is off Puerto Vallarta. The second one is the most secure jail in Mexico, the Altiplano de Almoya de Juarez, which is actually in the state of Mexico. Okay, well, so I talked about his life, what it means to be a narco, what the problems Mexico faced, and the solutions that were behind the capturing of this terror. And to wrap it all up, in his case, the bigger they are, the harder they fall.